What is up with it? Today we are back with something a little different. I have Enricomaria joining me, 8th place at Worlds, national champion at Utrecht. Enrico, thank you for joining us. Go ahead and introduce yourself.
Thank you very much for inviting me. It's great to be here. Thanks for the invite. I think you already introduced myself pretty good. So
The Doflamingo goat, and he's going to be joining us here today to discuss a little bit of Doflamingo in the current metagame post ban. He just made a guide on his metafy that will be linked in the description. I highly recommend you guys check it out. I paid for it and read it myself, and it's a great read if you are truly considering taking Doflamingo to maybe a store championship this month or maybe a full regional. We have a few of those. I know I personally am still considering Doflamingo, which is part of the reason why I wanted to sit down and talk with Enrico. He is the Doflamingo goat, as we all know, and hopefully you guys enjoy a little bit of the insight. We're not going to go into everything in the guide because, of course, we want to leave some in there. So there's some things we won't be discussing, but we'll definitely be diving into it a fair bit. But first of all, I wanted to talk to you about Worlds. You know, I don't know if you saw, I spoke with Joshua a couple days ago about his experience at Worlds. You I believe lost to Joshua in top 8, but how was your experience? What was it like for you?
First of all, I want to say hi to Joshua. We are really nice friends. Even though he beat me, we played so many times now that I feel like we are kind of like rivals now. So I just wanted to say hi. Words. For me, it was quite a dream coming true. I come from other card games where for most people that played other card games, the objective is always to go to Worlds. Win Worlds is the dream. So already attending for One Piece, that is such a great game now. It was for me already an achievement. I didn't expect, to be honest, to win in Utrecht, the tournament. It was really out of nowhere. So also going to Worlds was really nice because I don't know if you know, but also Gianluca, the other Italian guy that qualified, is a really close friend of mine. We used to play a lot of card games together. Like we know each other since 10 years, I think.
Oh, wow.
So going to Worlds together was like insane. Tournament in general was really nice, well organized. It was quite smooth. Actually, it was a bit too fast. I believe. Like it was like 3 hours, everything was done.
Oh, wow.
But yeah, the organization was pretty good. They had everything in place, no issues at all, no like warnings, game losses, nothing. Like every player that I met was really friendly. So also like the level was of course pretty high, but also like everyone was friendly. Like they were not sharking or anything. Like I played like some known players. I played against Clyde. I think it's quite known in the scene. Really nice guy. Then I played Joshua twice actually.
Yeah.
Played on round 3, and then we played in top 8. Actually, when I went 4-0, I already knew I was in top. I was like, I hope Joshua wins, but then I don't want to play against him because he was playing Lucci. It was my worst matchup. And I also played the Chinese guy that won. Now I cannot remember the name, but
Marco,
he was a really good player. Yeah, he deserved the tournament. He played really well against me. He was really good player. He played perfectly finals. When I played with him. So yeah, in general, it was a good experience. Was not my first time in Japan, but I always liked Japan. It's a really nice place. Also, let's say in general, the Bandai Fest was like the event in general was nice because it was not only awards; it was like a whole fair of Bandai games. So it was well organized. Also the hotel was nice, so couldn't complain.
I have so many things I want to branch off of that actually. First I'll start with I guess I actually don't know too much about your background. What card games did you play before One Piece?
So I started with Yu-Gi-Oh, but like we're talking about like 15 years ago.
Yeah.
I used to play Yu-Gi-Oh in let's say competitively 2010,
Mm,
2012, pretty much. I was
Yeah.
really young at the time. Then I switched to I don't know if you know this game, Forza Wheel. Was a Japanese game that was quite big in Italy at the time, also big in Germany and France. So in Europe was quite big, also in the US actually. I have some friends that played that, and I first time I went to Worlds of a card game was with that one.
Oh,
So
wow.
I went 3 years in a row.
3 years?
Yes. Actually, that's why I went to Japan so many times.
Okay.
People always ask. I was like, this is the 5th time I go, and they were like, "Why do you go to Japan so many times?" And I was like, "I'm forced to. Like, I have to play the games." But yeah, it was a bit of a smaller game compared to One Piece, of course. Let's say tournaments were like 300, 400 people, not like One Piece numbers. So managing to achieve again such a result in such a big game was like the confirmation for me, like I'm actually a decent player. So yeah, it was nice. But yeah, that's that. I played some. Actually, I was playing Lorcana last year, but then like they just didn't do any more tournaments. I did a top cut in Birmingham last September in Lorcana. Actually, I met also other One Piece players there, so I can see like a lot of people is switching, putting that as a second game, or vice versa. I have a really good friend of mine, Federico. He won like Birmingham in Lorcana, and he's playing also One Piece. So like some people is doing first game Lorcana, second One Piece, or vice versa. So yeah. These are pretty much the games that I played. I played mostly everything. I like every card game. I played Magic a bit, but like most of these I never played competitively. I would say only Yu-Gi-Oh, Force of Will, One Piece, and Lorcana. Yeah, these are the 4.
Damn, going to Worlds that many times is crazy. Holy, okay, I see you. So you actually took the deck that I would have taken to Worlds, which is not just Doflamingo. I think everyone expected Doflamingo to be a bit popular, but specifically like the more 8.5-esque build of Doflamingo with the Kaidos and the gravity blades. I personally felt like going into the event, that was a really smart choice because we expected, or at least I expected, a lot of BY and maybe some Bonnie to counter the BYs and the Doffies. Is that kind of, would you walk me through your thought process on why you decided to build Doflamingo like that? And do you think in hindsight that was the correct build, or was there anything you would have changed about it into that room?
Yeah, so the thought process of that tournament was basically, okay, we're gonna play against really good players, so probably the field will be down to like Doffy and BY. That was our first thought, because I was preparing together with Gianluca. Is like a really one of the best BY players. He won like Milan finals, and then he won Bologna back to back with BY, like
insane
results.
Insane.
Yeah. So I was like, okay, I also know most of the players. Okay, Clyde is a big BY player, Cross as well, Flash as well. Like all the Europeans and American players that I knew, they were on BY. So I was like, okay, I'm kind of forced to play this build, because that was also the same process that I did in Utrecht. I was like, okay, if I manage to get into Top Cut, then it will be mostly like mirrors and like BYs against BY. If you see Kaido, is like so much easier.
Yes.
So yeah, I was like, okay, let's bring this. And as you said, also Bunny was something that some people thought about. A lot of people wanted to counter, and actually in the end we had some NL as well. Boards.
Yeah.
So also in that instance, okay, Kaido is pretty good against NL.
Phenomenal.
It's a win condition that you can, yeah, it's pretty good. So I was like, okay, if I face some counter decks of BY, because everyone was so focused on BY that I was like, okay, my build has to deal with that, but also with the other decks. I like Doffy a lot because it can adapt to everything else. I think it's one of those decks that like can play against everything. Because sometimes in One Piece you have some decks that are like, okay, I sit down, they flip the leader, like it's my counter, I just lose. Like, I don't know, BY against each, for example, it's so bad.
It's hard.
While Doffy can really fine tune the list based on the meta and still like do his things. that I saw also in Munich last week. Like I played so many random decks, and I was like, okay, I just do my own thing, no matter what deck you're playing, and I still can manage to win. So yeah, that was my thinking. I wasn't expecting those many Luchis. I played 3 Luchis.
Oh wow.
That is, of course, it's the worst matchup for Doffy at the time.
Yeah, for that build specifically.
Yeah, the Kaido is pretty bad. Gravity Blade is fine, I think.
Sometimes.
And I wasn't running Perfume because I was like, okay, it's not gonna be open decklist. I specifically asked in the Words Discord, like, is it gonna be open decklist? Because of course, if they don't know that you're not playing Parfum, they still have to
Respect
play around it. Yeah. So I was like, okay, I'm not gonna run this. And it was actually my thought process also for Utrecht, but I remember not this year, but the year before in Top Cut it was open decklist, so that's why I was playing 1 there. But then this year they decided, okay, we're not gonna do open decklist, and I was like, okay, this card is useless. I think I never used Perfume in like 16 turns, was like 19 turns.
Yeah.
I never played the card. It was insane.
I've always been a big hater of that card. I've always felt like that card is like so fake.
Yeah, I like it more now with Teach, to be honest. It was pretty good in Munich. I was playing 1 and he won me like 2 or 3 games against Teach. But yeah, in general, was I think now it's a bit better than before.
So why do you think you were obviously the highest placing Doffy at 8th, I believe. Why do you think Doffy didn't do that well? Because I think most people would say, Doffy is the best deck. I mean, a lot of people brought BY, it was more represented, and a lot of people thought BY was the pick for that tournament. But like overall, we've seen in 09 at least, Doffy succeed so much. Why do you think it kind of floundered at Worlds? Do you think it was just kind of like small sample size and unlucky, or do you think there was some real issues with Doflamingo in that room?
I think it was kind of a mix. I know that Joshua played 3 Doffys, so he probably killed most of the room. Like I was a round 3 against Joshua, and I asked him like, "What did you play against?" And he was like, "You're the 3rd Doffy." And I was like, "Okay, I understand why you're 2-0." And he knows very well the matchup, so I think that was one. And then I know some of them died to the NLs. There were like 2, 3 NLs. So yeah, if you lose 1 to Joshua Lucci, to the Chinese guy Lucci again, then you have NLs. Also against BY it's not a free matchup.
No.
And I also saw some builds of the BYs that were there. Some people was playing Ace, for example, that is not. If you're not playing the Kaido build and you're playing like the normal one, like Jonas build, for example, without the Kaidos, then you can struggle with that. So yeah, it's a bit different. I don't know the players personally that played Doffy, to be honest, because I didn't play a single mirror match at Worlds. So I played BY, Lucci, Luffy RP, and then the Lucci again, and then Lucci in top 8. So a lot of Luccis. So yeah, I didn't see them in general. I know my friend played one Doffy. He lost. That Doffy lost to Joshua. So yeah, it was kind of tricky because if he was like, okay, you have to do 4-1 to get into top cut. Most people did like 3-2. That is on average like okay. And yeah, probably they didn't make it for that. So
yeah, I was shocked not only to see how much Lucci, but how well Lucci did. I spoke with Joshua about this, but man, going into that tournament, I would not have brought Lucci. Like, that's so crazy to me. Like, because I feel like there was a general sense that, like, BY is going to be maybe the most popular deck in that room. And I think it did end up being like a third of the room, or a little bit more than a third of the room, even close to half, I think. And it's just crazy to me. It's just crazy. But I mean, obviously it worked out.
Yeah. I spoke to some players because I know that at least the guy who won faced 1 or 2 BYs and he won.
Yep.
And also, I spoke to Joshua about it, and he was like, okay, my build is thought to be something that can beat BY. And okay, as much as BY can be favored in that matchup, is not like free, and you can
Mm-hmm.
always lose. And they were running the Kaidos. I think Joshua was
Yeah.
running the Zombie Luffy.
Mm-hmm.
Um, the other guy was running the Kaido because he played it against me.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, if you see those cards, it's still a winnable matchup. I saw a lot of people losing to Lucci anyways with
Mm-hmm.
BY. So
Yeah.
I don't know, but I also know that most of the BYs they die to like random stuff. I know
Mm-hmm.
some people died to Shanks, some people died to NL. It was most of the like I wouldn't say rogue decks, but like the people who was trying to counter those BYs
Mm-hmm.
managed to do so,
Mm-hmm.
and by doing that, it allowed the Luchis to perform. Because then, of course, if you remove the BY, then Lucci was like one of the best decks because you win against the other best deck that is Doffy.
Mm-hmm.
Against all these random decks like Bunny and L, you just destroy them.
Yeah.
So it
Destroy
was
them.
yeah. I think it was a good call if you could manage to withstand the BYs. Personally, I didn't expect BYs to do so badly
Mm-hmm.
because I
Yeah.
know a lot of good players as well. Like all the good players were bringing BY, and I was like, okay, some of them will end up like top 3 100%. And then in like top cut there were no BYs, and I was like, how did this happen? Like even the Japanese players were playing BY, so I don't really know how that happens.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah. I'm still surprised at like how that top eight breakdown went. Like, if you had asked me before Worlds happened, like, what do you think the odds of the finals is Shanks Lucci? I would have been like, you're smoking crack. That's not happening. Like, how
Yeah,
much money do you want to bet? Like, it's not gonna be Shanks Lucci. Like, it's
yeah,
just
yeah,
not.
indeed.
So that I don't
Oh
know.
yeah,
That was crazy. I don't know.
yeah. I thought the same.
But we can start transitioning from story time to the real meat and potatoes, why people are here speaking about
Yeah.
Dofi in the current format, something that of course you have spent a lot of time on. You wrote the guide again. Everyone check out the description. I highly recommend Enrico's guide on his Metafy. But the number one question I'm sure people have been asking you, the question that I've been asked to ask you, is Dofi still best deck?
That's a good question indeed. I think it's too soon to tell. From what I say also on the guide, Doffy provides such high consistency in what it does that I think in such a like random meta, I think we saw some similar meta back last year, or was it 2 years ago? I don't remember. There was one tournament in Barcelona, at
Mhm.
least in Europe, where like the field was everything. Like I think I faced in 10 rounds like 8 different decks. Uh, and I was like, okay, this is probably gonna be because we have London next week.
Mhm.
It's probably gonna be pretty much the same. And I don't think we have at the moment a best deck because a lot of people is on Shanks. Uh,
Mhm.
I thought less people would have been on Doffy, but actually now that I also had some feedbacks about the guide, a lot of people was like, I was waiting for this. I wanted to play
Mhm.
Doffy after the band list. So I
Mhm.
was like, okay, so I'm not the only one. I think also Lucci is still playable because what I think is that this band list was not really killing these decks. I would expect actually I would have expected them to ban Doffy in general because it also creates problems with the game design if they print like some 7 warlord that is
Mhm.
like broken, it just breaks the deck. So they had to be careful with that.
Mhm.
Jinbe of course was an insane card, but it was
Insane.
not like what I always say is like I managed to win a lot of games without seeing Jinbe. So
Yes.
why should this deck be bad now? Like it's
Mhm.
just a what I say is like Doffy now is just an unlucky Doffy of
Mhm.
pre-banned.
Mhm.
So I wouldn't say best deck. I would say it's one of the best. This will probably be a meta when we can see 4 or 5 tier 1s at the same time. Probably what usually happens in these metas is that people will just copy what wins and then the meta will revolve around that. So we will create kind of a fake tier 1 circle where actually you can play everything, because I think Teach is like the best deck, but at the same time there are so many rogue decks in this meta that destroy Teach. That's like, yeah, I thought the same when I played in Munich last week. I faced Teach in top 32, and I was like, if this guy would have played like something else, he would have won. But now he's against me. I have die roll. I just 2-0'd him like instantly. Against Doffy is pretty bad.
Yeah.
But then you like instantly win against a lot of other decks.
Yeah.
So yeah, I wouldn't say it's the best deck. I think it's still one of the best. But it really depends where we go, because if Teach is one of the best, if Zoro is one of the best, then Doffy can be the best because you are well positioned against that. Shanks is not a free matchup. It's actually quite tough.
It's quite tough.
It depends on the popularity. But I also think that Doffy is one of those decks that can afford to build around the meta. So probably it will adapt based on that. So first tournaments will be probably just a generic list. And then, of course, let's see how it goes. If we see a high popularity of, like, for example, Teach and Zoro, then Doffy is one of the best. If Shanks stays the best, then of course he's different.
So you talked about a little bit just now, and you talk about it at the beginning of your guide as well, that you think Doflamingo could be a really good pick because it's consistent. And in a diverse meta, you think it's a really good idea to pick just a consistent deck that will be able to do its game plan. I think everyone understands the concept of a deck being consistent is a good thing. We all agree that like part of the reason why Doflamingo has been such a force throughout his existence is not just because he's super strong, right? Like the Jinbei explosion that you could do where you could go like Jinbei Weevil, Jinbei Boa, Weevil was like just unbelievably absurd. But not just that, but the fact that you actually low key got to do that like all the time, because you were so consistent with your Sengokus, with your Peronas. We all understand consistency is important, but what about a diverse meta do you think makes it more important? I'm not sure if you believe that, but that's kind of what I got reading the guide, was you thought it was even more important that your deck is consistent in a diverse meta. And I'd love to hear you elaborate on that.
Yeah. So I think to explain this concept that we should talk about like a deck like Teach. I think Teach is one of the best decks in the game at the moment.
For sure.
But when you have such a different meta, because Teach is consistent as well, but you're consistent against the meta. When you play against like random stuff, it gets tough because you can face like some random aggro decks, like I don't know, like Zoro, different builds, a lot of like random decks like Lim. I saw Lim. People was playing like when you have a meta that has every color, then if you play such a targeted deck, it's difficult because the problem with Teach, for example, is that you have to build the deck based on what you expect in the tournament. So like some cards, like for example, Liberation, you don't know if you want to play one or you don't want to play it if you want to play the roulette list, for example. While a deck like Doffy has like something like 40, 43, 40 something staple cards that you have to play. The deck does his thing. He doesn't need to play cards to do well against other decks because his own package of warlords already does what you need. And then you can support that with something that allows you to deal with what you don't have in the package. So for example, Duff is a deck that cannot deal with big guys. Then you can run Red Rock. The color blue has almost everything, like all the removals, like survival cards, everything you can. I was thinking about today, we were talking about Kaido, the Tenkos Kaido. It's a card that can give you survivability against like really long grind matchups. But yeah, in general, I also wrote the guide after Munich because that's where I had kind of my inspiration, because I was playing such a diversity. Like the meta was so diverse that I was like, I played so many matchups that I didn't test properly, and still I managed to win because it was like I'm just doing my own thing. Like if I play against an aggro deck, for example, I just loop the Morias and I just bounce the Sengokus 100 times. I fill my hand with +2Ks and I just win like that. If I played against a control deck, I was like, okay, I just go wide. They play one guy per turn. I just aggro with like all my guys. I protect everything, and then I just win like that. And that's where also my thought about Red Rock came in, because I was like, if I already win with aggros with the package of Warlords, I don't need to play anything else. And then if I manage to put something for the like decks that go tall, like Yellow Kid, for example, is a bad matchup. Now with the Red Rocks is better. I played against one in the top cuts and I managed to win, but because of time, he had like less cards in his deck.
Oh, wow.
And I had like 30, but I already knew going into the matchup, I was like, okay, now I lose. But then I won because of that. And in general, like, still you have some kind of, let's say that Doffy has like a plan for everything. Like whenever you face a deck, you already know what's their strategy is going to be. And you just say, okay, I will play the control game, I will play the aggro game, I will play like the mid-range. It's a deck that can really adapt to the situation. And I think that's together with, because it's not like I want to play the aggro game and then you cannot do it. You can always do it if you go like hard enough, or like the control game, you can just bounce the Peronas, dig for Red Rock, for example. That's something that your deck can do. You see so many cards in your deck that's why I say consistency, because most of the games you bounce Peronas and Sengokus like so many times that you see like the whole deck. So if you're really looking for something, you can search it, while other decks are like, okay, one turn, like turn one, I play the Searcher and that's it. Like the rest of the game is just I draw cards and I hope I get what I need. So yeah, I think that's the difference, because the package Perona Sengoku can, with the bounces as well, can really let you see everything.
It can, regardless of what you're playing versus, you can have your own engine is so strong, and then you can kind of find those pieces that you need for any specific matchup.
Yeah, exactly.
So do you think, you spoke about this a little bit, do you think Doflamingo is going to end up being popular? I don't know how much you look at like sim stats. I love looking at sim stats just to kind of get a gauge of like where people are at. Doflamingo is maybe like the 8th or 9th most played deck on sim currently. Do you think that that's accurate, or do you think when we actually pull up to regionals, whether it be London or for myself in Virginia, do you think Doffy will actually be significantly more represented than that?
I think for the first tournament, it's not going to be that popular. I think a lot of people thinks it's not as good as anymore. But that's also something that I saw in other card games when they do a band list and they kind of like break a deck, people tend to change. Like if you were playing Doffy before and now after the Jimbe ban, you are like, okay, it's a new expansion. They kind of weaken my deck. It's time to change.
Yep.
Also to get some fresh start.
Yes.
And I was actually thinking about it as well, but then I was like, okay, there is not enough time to prepare another deck. I think this is also one of the best choices because I was between that. I think Zoro is pretty good.
Yes.
Yellow Kid is pretty good. But it depends. Like some decks, I'm not a big fan because they don't give enough room to the player to like do. If you're like some decks, if you're a good player, you cannot do much. Like if you play Shanks, like your curve is that one. Like you cannot invent something else. So like you're kind of forced. Like okay, I have 5 dons. I will play like my 5 cost guy. It's not like a really good player will say, no, I will do this other play. Well, with Doffy, you have so many options.
So many.
Like you can think like 5 turns ahead, or like you reveal 5 with Perona and like you can do whatever you want. You have so many options that like you can really shine if you're a really good player and you can pilot the deck very well. So it's kind of the way that is the Doffy is unpredictable, that also is power, I think. because most average players, like, they will say, I have no idea what's gonna happen next turn. Like, you can play Red Rock, you can play Gravity. I don't even know what it's playing. Like, you can just smash Tenko Skaido because people doesn't expect, like, you have so many cards that you can play, and like, not even when I play a mirror match, I'm like, okay, I just develop board, I get rid of his board, and then what it's gonna do, I don't even know. Like, does he have Gravity? I have no information. I don't know what's gonna happen. So, for example, I explain a lot also in the guide that, like, mirror match is something that is kind of unpredictable, and you have to play every turn thinking what's gonna be the worst case scenario next turn, so you can already kind of expect what's going to happen, but then you have to play on board, because it has so many different lines that it's like there is no set game. While when you play against Shanks, like, okay, he has 8 Dawns, he's going to play Rayleigh, like, I already know. That's more kind of a predictable way. And yeah, I think that's that. Like, the deck is consistent, and at the same time it gives you space to invent, to do what you want to do.
It's very flexible with the things you can do, which is actually why I am personally deeply considering Doflamingo. As you said, there's a few people who have told me not to take Doflamingo, namely Cross. Cross is pretty adamant that Doflamingo is bad, and I asked him what I should sleeve up for Virginia, and he said not Doflamingo in all caps.
I know he's playing Usopp.
Like, yeah, he's playing Usopp. He's playing Usopp. But even with you and I both considering Doflamingo, there are some things we have come to different conclusions. I'm not going to show the deck list that you have on Metafy, because again, I want people to go check that out. Check it down in the description. But in your deck list, you include Pudding, which is a card that I have always been a big advocate for. I've seen people in previous formats cut it down to maybe even 1 copy, or maybe even completely. And I've always been very adamant, like, no, that's crazy. You got to run 3, maybe even 4, because you need to be able to punish your opponents for it. And I always felt like there were real meta decks that you needed it for. BY was a huge one. Anel, of course. Bonnie, I felt like you needed it versus Bonnie before. I currently actually think we don't need Pudding at all, and I think that it's maybe a bad card. I'd love for you to tell me why you feel differently and why you think it still deserves a slot in the deck.
Yeah. So Pudding, I really like Pudding because it can really punish the gains where your opponent cannot manage to narrow down the hands. I think it's also a card that kills average players. Like, some people, they just forget about it, and you just win the game on the spot. But to be honest, this meta, it's still a question mark. I'm playing it personally because I think green decks will be there. And it's something that I maybe developed while playing against BY, but also playing Pudding on 7 cards is not that bad.
No, it's not.
And a lot of times you just break their strategy. Like, it happened to me to play Pudding on, like, before turn 8 against Shanks, like just 1 turn before, and they had like 3 Rayleighs ready to go. I, like, bricked their hands, no Rayleighs anymore. They just answer with, like, I don't know, they play 5 cost Luffy, and I'm like, okay, I'm pretty happy about this.
Yeah.
But yeah, in general, I think green decks, I think Kid is quite popular still, because the problem is that if you don't play the card, and then it's like playing without one tool. Like, let's say the doffy is like a toolbox, and it's one of your tools. Pudding can be punishing, can win you the game. It's a card with counter, so it's not really a brick. You don't care. In some matchups, you can just, like, first attack that you have to counter with a plus 1000, it goes away. So it's not really that heavy as a card. Of course, I think it's still too soon to tell if we need it or not. So I don't think there is a correct answer there. I think in a meta that can expect everything, I want to have a well-rounded list that has an answer to everything. And to be honest, I think it happened to me sometimes even in Munich. Like people couldn't play around it, and I just played it and it won me the game. Like I really had to find a card that is much, much better than that to cut it from my list. I think, of course, it's worse without BY. With BY in the meta, it was like a card that you have to play. It's mandatory. Like you always want to see it in that matchup. Without BY, of course, it's less, but still, like, it managed me to win like games. For example, at Worlds, round 3, I played against Joshua. His hand was like kind of brick. He went to 9 cards. I played pudding, and just it won me the game. Like it was an insane pudding there. Sometimes can happen with some decks. They like, because I'm so used to play Doffy that always has the counter in hand because it draws a lot and you can kind of search them. That I never have problems, but when I see my friends playing or like other people and they play other decks, like I saw some games of Shanks where like they have 8 cards in hand, five of them they don't have counter. So like in those scenarios, if they go to 9, you're like, okay, I'm just gonna play pudding. I don't care. It's a -4 in their hands. And it's not only because the concept of pudding is not only removing cards from their hands, but randomizing some decks, like giving a new hand to some decks that need to build a hand during the game. It's kind of a win condition because let's say, okay, you draw a good hand, like you still lost 4 cards, for example, or like 2 cards. But if they draw a bad hand, you just win the game. Like that's the way everyone hate, like all the pro players, they hate pudding. That's why I play it. Because if pro players, they hate it because they say, they putting me at 7 cards, I drew a hand that was unplayable and I lost. And I'm like, why shouldn't I play this card? Like it just wins me the game on the spot if I'm lucky. So it's a card game. Luck is a factor, and
100%.
I think that's why you have to play it. But of course it depends. If I see like green decks disappearing and like the meta is like Teach, Shanks, Zoro, and like Doffy, I don't see like pudding is much worse. So probably you can cut it, but it depends.
It depends. Yeah, I agree with everything you said. That is what I've always really loved about pudding, is there's very few cards in the game that say like, if I play this card, it just wins me the game. You know, there's like 8-cost Kid can kind of be like that. Occasionally, maybe a 9-cost Zoro. And pudding is one of those very, very, very small number of cards in the game that says like, if I'm able to play this at the right time, almost nothing else in the game can matter. You can just boom, just like that, win the game.
Yeah. I think it's nice. I think, I agree with you. Zoro. Like there was one Zoro at the tournament, like one bunny, he played Zoro at 9 downs. I was like, I'm about to lose this game. Like, I think I managed to like trade it with like, he had 4 cards in hand. I went 11 on Zoro and he was like, okay, he's dead. And I was like, oh my God.
Oh, thank goodness. Thank goodness. Okay, so another card that we maybe disagree on a little bit. It was not in the list that you posted, but would be Vanilla Enricomaria. It's a card that I actually think is pretty good right now, but you didn't include it. I'm wondering how much you've tried it. If you think it could warrant a spot, do you think I'm coping? What are your thoughts on Vanilla Moria?
Yeah. I gave a section in the guide also for these kind of cards. I think Moria is a card that can really do some work in this meta. It's really good against a lot of decks. It's really good against Shanks, against Teach. It has counters, so it's pretty good as well. I think it's a card that if One Piece would allow to play more than 50 cards, I would include. The issue is that I think at the moment there are very few spots in this deck that you can play these kind of cards. So it's really complex. Actually, today I was talking with my friends also about the crocodile,
the draw croc.
one that draws. Yes. So I think removing Jimbe from the game gave these other warlords some room for playability. I think the Moria is the best one. That's why a lot of people is talking about it. It's a 6K. It's solid. It has counter. It's searchable. Everything. Like it does everything the deck wants to. It gives consistency to the game plan of just putting 6Ks on board. I think overall is a really good card, especially in this meta. It's difficult to find room for this card because
it is.
I don't know how many copies would you play of that, because that's always the issue. Like if I play a warlord, I don't like to play like one copy. I need to play at least like 2. It depends. For that kind of card, maybe you would like to play 3 as well.
Yeah, even
so
3.
It really depends. Yeah, it depends. I think it's an issue of slots. It's not that the card is bad. I think it's pretty good. It's just what I find very difficult now, because Jimbe forced us to think about how do we want to use those 4 slots that were covered by an insane card. Now we need to fill it with something that is not going to be as good as, of course, but can support an overall strategy that now is going to be different from before, because of course aggroing is much more difficult now, but still, like, it was one of the issues that I always had with Doffy was like, I don't have slots. Like the core of the deck was like 47 cards or something, like 45. And I was like, okay, I don't have slots to add something because I need to play these cards. Now that Jinbei is gone, I have the 4 extra slots. So I think who is going to succeed with Doffy is the person that managed to like find the best way to use these new slots, because of course they will go together with the slots that we already had free. So let's say you have like 4 Josus, for example, the Gravity Blades, Red Rocks, Kaidos, all these cards can be like, if you just remove everything, I think you go to like 40 cards. Those 10 cards are what is gonna like matter in the sense that like the player that managed to find those 10 cards that like stick together will be the better Doffy. So I think that's the concept.
Yeah, I agree. It's a pretty unique thing, honestly, because I personally felt really throughout the end of 8.5 and basically all of 9, deck building and Doffy really didn't matter that much. Dallas, for example, like I won day 1 and then like I posted my deck list that night before the second day. Because it was just like, I don't really care if anyone knows like what's in my deck list. Like 99.9% of Doffy deck lists are so similar that like I don't, it doesn't matter, right?
No.
However, right now, it actually does feel like deck building in Doflamingo is going to be like a real expressive skill, because it's so uncertain, both the meta itself and like the deck list, because it hasn't been so refined. I really think that's something that's really interesting. I mean, that's honestly all decks are going through that right now, but it's interesting that this deck that's never really had to go through it. I mean, maybe a little bit at the beginning of 8.5. But it's just interesting to see like really being able to express that in deck building now.
Yeah, indeed. No, I agree. I think it's probably better for the deck. I like that deck building a lot. It was kind of a shame for Doffy, but I was like the same when people were asking me like, what are you gonna play at Worlds? I was like, Doffy, I don't care. I don't need to hide this. Like people knows I know how to play the deck, and it's like one of those decks. Okay, what build is he gonna play? Like you're kind of forced to play that build because otherwise you can't win against BY. So I think it was a bit worse in that sense, but now it's better and worse in the sense for this tournament. Maybe it will be worse, but then later we will have more room for deck building. It will be more fun.
Yeah. Maybe it could be a deck that like maybe the first weekend could struggle a little bit, maybe not be that popular, but as it's more refined, it might do better throughout the format. I could definitely see that happening.
Yeah, indeed.
So Gravity Blade is a card that I think both you and I really enjoy. In your Metafy, you include Gravity Blade. You talk about how strong you think it is. An alternative that I've seen have a lot of success on ladder is 3000 Worlds, and I don't believe you talk about that in your guide unless I missed it. Have you tried 3000 Worlds at all as an alternative to Gravity Blade? Do you think there's some merit there, or you think the upside of Gravity Blade is too high to warrant potentially cutting?
So the reason why that card is not in the guide is because I think it came out after I finished the guide, and I was like, okay, this is too late. It's already out. I don't know if I can update the guide on Metafy. I think so. So I will probably talk about it as well. But yeah, it's a card that we were talking about also these days with all the people that I'm testing with. I don't really know, to be honest. I see it has a high win rate in the ladder. It's I don't really see the slots for that because it's one of those cards that you need to play 4 copies of, I think, or like 3. Because like playing 2 is very situational. Maybe you could find a way, but like the problem is that I saw a lot of people playing that card is removing Josu, for example.
Yeah, that's
Josu
crazy.
Josu is kind of, I think it's like one of the best cards in the game at the moment. Like it's really insane if you play it on curve.
Yes.
But in general, I think it can be for sure a card. And as I was saying before, like there are so many blue cards that can be played that I think we still need to explore because our like doffy players, we are not used to deck build that much anymore.
Yeah.
So like this is kind of new for us. Like we have so many slots now. What are we gonna do? And that's also something that I did some days ago. I was like, I opened the sim, I put on like filter blue cards, and I started reading every card in the game. And I was like, some cards came out, but it's always complex because you also need to fit these cards in those 10 flex spots that we were talking about, and it's kind of complex to find. I think you had to find kind of a harmony in that because of course if you play, for example, Tenkos Kaido, you have to cope with the fact that that card is gonna sit in your hand the whole game. If you play, like for example, also for 3000 Sword, also those cards are like a quite situational. Red Rock as well, Gravity Blade as well. A lot of these high cost cards without counter are like a commitment for you. So you also have to understand because if you play too many bricks, you're gonna remove consistency from the deck, and I saw people losing to that. Like you open the end, possibly you have like I don't know 2 spells, Kaido, you just lose the game. Like your hand is pretty bad unless you see a Perona and you start off. But like you have to understand how much you can push your list, like what the limit is. And in that sense, I think 3000 Sword is a really good card, but it's also like quite situational. So you have to think if it's worth to play something like that that is taking slots from something else. I think it has to be tried for sure. It's one of the best candidates because as we were saying before, okay, Josu is one of the best cards. Why? Because he can bounce the 5 drops. A lot of decks are based now on curve, and usually the turning point is that 5 cost piece like Smoker, the Rush Luffy, I don't know what else, Van Ogre, the how is it called, the Burgess.
The Burgess.
You have so many 4-5 cost drops that are like can really be a turning point. That like those kind of cards can be really good. Like for example, if they play a Smoker on curve without the Tashigi, you can just play the sword, bottom deck that, use teach effect, a leader effect, and like you're far ahead. So it's for sure a card that can see play. I think it's a card that if it shines, it will do it either in London or the US tournament. At the same time, if some crazy guy wants to play it, I think is not a bad card. It's just playing it into the darkness. It's kind of a bet that can also pay off. I'm not saying that the card is bad, but yeah, of course, it's also something that we might see later if we see, okay, the meta is really revolving around some kind of decks where this card is good, you can play for.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of people is saying it's good against Shanks. If
Mm-hmm.
really Shanks is one of the best decks in the meta, then of course you can play that card, because that's the issue with these first tournaments. You cannot really target your list too much on one deck,
Mm-hmm.
because then sometimes I see like, okay, you expect 30% of the field is going to be Shanks.
Mm-hmm.
And then like me in Munich, you play one Shanks in like 13 rounds.
Yep.
So like if your build is against that deck and you play only one, then yeah, you failed the deck list. And still you can do very well at the tournament, but still like the concept behind your deck list was not wrong, but like unlucky, I would say.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I'm not sure if you saw it. I saw a little discourse actually about Jozu on Twitter, saying that Jozu is not good right now. And we, of course, saw throughout Doffy's lifespan previously, like when the West first got Jozu, they loved it. They were like, auto 4 include, this card is crazy. Like, I would say most lists at the very start were running 4. And as we had Doffy, that number kind of whittled down, with Jonas even getting, I think it was second in Latin with 0 of them, I think, if I remember correctly.
Yeah,
something
I
like
remember
that.
Yeah.
Do you think, because you and I both think Jozu's crazy right now. I think that someone saying Jozu's bad right now is pretty crazy. Like, to me, and from what my testing, from what I've been seeing, Jozu is like one of the biggest reasons to play the deck, because there's just less removal overall in the game, and there's a lot of 5 drops. So being able to play something that establishes a body and removes your opponent's 5 drop on curve, to me, is like pretty nuts. Do you think there's any merit to what they're saying? Have you had any times where you were displeased with Jozu at all? Do you think maybe it's not that auto 4 of that? I at least think it is.
I think I can see their point there. Like, Jozu is a card that you can really want to see this meta on curve. Like, if you see it later, it's a bit worse, but still, like we were saying before, it's not a brick. Like, it has a counter. So
Yep.
I think it's something that if you really want to max out, you can. Personally, I've always been a fan of Josu. I think I was playing 4 in Utrecht, if I'm not wrong. Then I went down to 3 for wards. But yeah, I think it's in this meta, especially like whenever I play it on curve against most of the decks, because everyone is playing tempo now.
Yep.
All the green decks, red decks, almost everything, like also against the yellow kit, everyone is playing on curve, and doing that tempo play is really strong. But also like you can bounce a 1 drop that is really good, so it's a counter. And I think removing that Josu from the field now, it has become really, really difficult. So that's also why I like it so much. Like a 7k, most of the decks, they cannot deal with, because they already need to remove your warlords. Your deck is very consistent at having +2 counters in hand. So like there is not really a deck that can afford to remove it that easily. If they have to play on curve, that leader is almost always going to attack for 5.
Yep.
So like that guy is just going to swing for 7 every turn for free. He did a tempo play, like you basically remove 5 mana from their field. It's like it's so good. Like I always like the card in general. I can see people not playing if they provide something else. Like I think it's a card that you can cut if you really rethink the whole list. Like for example, let's say you want to play a Kaido heavy list. It's gonna be full of counters. You just play like removals, like 3000 sword, red rock. You just get to the point where you have 10 dawns. You just smash Kaidos after Kaidos, and you just win. That might be a thought process for that. But personally, I was always a big fan of the card. I played 4 and then 3. Now I'm playing 4 again. I think it's always like some people try to convince me also for wars, like just play 2, and I was like, no way. Like, this card is just too good. I like it so much, and it's also kind of my play style. Like I always manage to fit him in almost every match, even against aggro decks. Sometimes I just play the Josu. Like sometimes I think against a Zoro, I was like, I had like the law in my hands, and 7 dons. I was like, okay, I'm gonna play Josu, bounce back my 2 1-cost guys, then teach effect, put the law on top, play law, rebound something else. I had 3 counters in hand. I remove this whole board. I have a 7k on board. Like it's insane. It can really loop your counters. And if you really play well, it gives you consistency, because of course you play the law, but you don't always have the law.
Nope.
So of course you have 8 bounces, and against aggro decks, this is something that I also explain on the guide, especially against Zoro. Like you have to enter into a mindset where if you can really abuse the Sengokus, you just play like I think in Munich I played 4 Zoros. One of them, like I think I played Sengoku like 8 times. My hand was like only +2. And in those matchups, I think it's really good. And yeah, I think there is no matchup where the card is bad. Even Teach, there is a deck that counters his effect, is still like for 6 or 7k. 6 cost is really hard to remove for Teach. So like even there, where it doesn't do anything, it's just a vanilla 7k for 6. It's good. So yeah, I'm a big fan.
Yeah, I completely agree with everything you said. I think the card is phenomenal. I think I've typically been higher on it than most people. Yeah, I completely agree. Is there anything else you wanted to discuss about Doffy before we head into my final question for you?
I think we covered almost everything. It's I would say some feedbacks that I got after the guide. A lot of people, they want to have kind of very detailed, like turn by turn explanation of some matchups, and they told me, yeah, I wanted to know, like if I play against Shanks or like against Zoro, what, like every turn, like your 3 downs, what do you do? And I was like, that's something that I explained to a lot of people. Like with Doffy, you have so many lines, and the deck is so much based on what your opponent does, that it's really difficult to write something that is like, yeah, this turn play this card, that turn play that card.
Yeah,
and I think in One Piece in general, it's really complex to do that.
Yeah, I don't even know how I would begin to write a guide like that for Doflamingo. Like, I mean, I think Fletcher wrote a Shanks guide on his Twitter where he was able to outline that 3 Dawn play Sanji, 5 Dawn play Luffy, 7 Dawn play Beckman. I think I saw that. I'm not sure if you saw that. So
yeah.
I think
it was a troll poll.
Yeah, I think so too. But other decks, I think you can do that sort of thing. Doffy, there's too many options. There's no like strict curve. I just don't even think it's really feasible to do that sort of thing, honestly.
Yeah, of course you have a lot of tricks that you can do. I also explained on the guide, like with Teach, if you have 5 downs, you can do like Warlord, the Teach effect, but okay, that's a minor play that probably a lot of people already knows. But it's just a general concept of the deck. And yeah, Doffy is not a deck where you can say, okay, on 5 play this, 7 play that. But yeah, I think most people, they already know that. I just got this feedback and I was like, okay, I think, and I always say on the guide as well, like if you really struggle with some matchups, I will find a way to like learn it very well. Like coaching is a really good example. Or like you just find some friends, like they play only Shanks. You say, okay, we play 100 games together. We understand what you suffer, what I don't like, what I should do, this and that.
Yeah, awesome. My final question is, what are your thoughts on the discourse of this meta being bad or unhealthy? I'm not sure if you saw Luigi kind of sparked this discourse. I wanted to hear your thoughts on this.
I do not agree with that. I mean, it really depends. Like if you're really, because this was something that's happened in the past as well. If you're really like a high level competitive player, you want to be consistent, of course, in tournaments. Metas like this like gives a lot of randomness to the fact that like you play 10 rounds, you can face really everything. And they prevent you from playing one deck that maybe you would like to play, because you know if you play 10 random decks, you cannot really expect to perform. So a lot of people, I think they get frustrated because of that. Having such a variety of decks is kind of bad for really high competitive players, because they cannot really build around that. They cannot really do a call. Like if you would like to play Teach, as I was saying before, okay, it's really complex because you cannot really fine tune the list in these kind of metas.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, I think it's nice because he really, I saw like a big spark of will to test and like try this deck and that build, a lot of things. I have a lot of friends that like stopped playing. They just came back. They're like, I'm playing 10 different decks. I'm trying this build and that build, like Lucci this way, or like that's like insane builds. And I was like, what is this? Like, this is unplayable, or like, but it's really, I think this is the phase where like most of the fun is if you have a group of friends where you can actually test everything, try to find like the secret deck that can like win the, I don't know, regional or whatever, or just win locals. I don't care. But yeah, it's like, I think it's pros and cons, of course. I'm a big fan of these kind of metas because I like to deck build, and it gives you a lot of space to do so. Of course, now I have London in a week. There is not really enough time, so I'm going with like my safe play, let's say. But for example, I know a lot of people is gonna play tournaments like we have one in Germany end of month. For that one, you have 3 weeks. You can really test everything out. And like I know a lot of people, like for example, there was in Munich a lot of German players were playing Lim. And when I met them at the location, they were like, yeah, I'm playing Lim. And I was like, holy shit, I don't even know what it does. Like, it was like, I was scared. I was like, oh my god, they found the secret deck that is going to win the tournament. Like that's always the way. Like I remember also back in the days with Johnny and Nino and the other Italian guys, like when they found ST14, that was like, okay, they found the secret deck.
Yeah.
And like every new meta, also with the Banlist now, like this is the kind of situation where they always say every day, like we need to find the new ST14. Like every day, like they test something else. And and that was the feeling that I had when I heard about Lim. And then they just lost like round 4. They were like playing side events. I don't know. So I was like, maybe they were not correct. I remember also some other Italian players, they were playing Usopp with Morias. And I was like, oh my god, this is the secret deck. And then like, I think they ended up bubbling everyone. Like everyone bubbled. So they were quite close, but it would have been like a deck that if I would have faced it, I would have lost 100%.
Yeah, Usopp can be really hard for Doffy for sure.
Yeah. And that build with the Moria was like insane. And I think that's the beauty of this kind of meta. I can understand the frustration behind these kind of metas, because maybe now I go to London next week, I face 3 Usopp and I just go 0-3. It's very random. And of course, One Piece being a best of 1 game, that is not the best. I faced it myself at Wars when I had to play Lucci again in Top Cut. But yeah, indeed, it's something that I enjoy, this kind of meta. I think it's really player based, but saying like that is toxic for the game is not true, because I see it every day. Like people is having fun testing stuff, and even though it's chaos, it's complete chaos, and some people might get frustrated by it, I think still everyone is having fun, and that's the important thing, I think. Also we will see maybe they find the secret deck and it gets tier 0 meta. I don't know.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to hearing what all the Italians cook up, man. I know the secret deck, El Nino, Gianni. I know everyone's gonna be cooking something, and No one has told me. You know, I've had both El Nino and Gianni on the channel. No one has said, "Hey, Elijah, here's the secret deck. You should take it to Virginia." I don't know. I guess I'll see the deck profile from London like everyone else. I guess I don't know. I'm scrambling for answers. I don't know about you. This whole time I've been asking everyone, "Yo, what's the goo? What's the goo?"
they're working. I know that they're working hard in the kitchen. So something might come up. I don't know. Maybe for London it's too soon. It's complex.
Yeah, it could be. It could be.
Still, I can see them. I speak to them every day, and like every day there is a new deck list, new deck, new something. I think that's the important thing. Like keep trying. At some point, if there is a secret deck, it will be found eventually. But yeah, we will see. I think most people is getting now for next week, kind of yeah, they're just going with the safe play. Maybe we have a lot of time still with this meta, so might be solved later, and people will be like older metas where they were gonna be why didn't we find this deck before? We would have won like every event. But yeah, maybe I'm wrong and we just played random until EB.
Yeah, maybe. Honestly, the format is so short. I think it's probably a format that we will not ever solve. Like, I think it's going to be like 3 weeks, 4 weeks, whatever it is, and then like by the end of it, we're still going to be like, I don't even know what the best deck was. Honestly, I really think that's I think that's super possible.
Yeah, that's probably the most likely outcome. I think.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for doing this, Enrico. Again, congratulations for your 4th place at Munich and 8th place at Worlds. This was phenomenal. Thank you. Seriously, thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you very much for the invite. It was great talking to you. And I had a lot of fun.
And once again, everyone, check out his Metafy guide at the bottom in the description if you are interested. Thank you all so much for watching, and I hope you have a great rest of your day.